Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Rumsey, and today we had our first synchronous meeting at 10:30. It is now about 11:15, and after 45 minutes for looking for the recording that I know I did, I still cannot find where WebEx put the recording that I made of our meeting. So, for those of you who weren't able to be there, and for anyone who wants a reminder of what we talked about, I'm just going to go over the materials really quick here in a regular video that I can create with software that I know how to use. Don't get me started on how frustrated I am with the software made available to us as faculty, because it's pretty frustrating. So let's get down to business. Here when I did the introduction video that I sent out last week, a lot of this is really familiar. Our class happens to be the brick wall class because I thought it is pretty and looks sort of vaguely book-like without being books. And also it's probably my favorite background, so you guys win. Obviously, this is our Brightspace page. Brightspace is really problematic. It's not my favorite, but it's what we've got to work with, so we're going to try and make the most of it. As always, the best way to get a hold of me is email. There's my email address right here. Also, I have this online phone number that I actually do have available and use, and so especially for texting and things like that, feel free to use it. I generally log in about 9 in the morning or so, and then I log out usually by about 4, but sometimes 5. The other thing is I'm almost always logged into Microsoft Teams when I'm online, and Teams is a great way of, sorry, that was a cat tail that just went by. Teams is a great way of, basically it's like dropping into my office, which I wish I was there to be able for you guys to do all the time or anytime you wanted to, but I'm always available, and unless I'm in another meeting, pretty much you can interrupt me. So let's get started. As you recall, the content button is the one that I recommend you use the most. It takes you to the basics of all of this. And just for fun, what I'm going to do, that's not it. I am going to view as a learner. You guys are learners. I don't know if you knew that or not, but there you go. Okay, so now I see what you see. And your content page is going to look like this. So this is week 1. You could have started in getting started, but let's face it, it's almost exactly the same as what's available in week 1, unless you really want to know more about me, which you can click right here. So week 1, obviously, this would have been our first synchronous meeting. And if for those of you who were there, you know that this actually happened, and I talked, and we were vaguely together for a time. So the course calendar is the other thing I want to go over, the syllabus and calendar briefly. Here's all the stuff that's here periodically through the semester, because I really want this class to be engaging and meet you guys where you are and actually develop your skills and be present. I'm going to probably be adapting things as we go, adding additional short videos if things are confusing, that kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and click on calendar and syllabus because it is easy to get to. There we go. Okay. So obviously this is professional writing. It really should say Introduction to Professional Writing. It is a 200 level course, and actually this is the first time I've taught this course. It's a brand new creation by me. I'm by no means new to professional writing. For the past 15 years or so, I've been teaching technical writing at the 200 and 400 level. I used to teach the writing for multiple media class until Dr. Keller joined our department. Actually, she was my student in that class probably 14 or 15 years ago. And so professional writing as a genre and the fields, I should say, or the field of professional writing is not new to me. What is new is the idea that we needed a class that was sort of entry level for people who were either just starting out or who were looking for sort of the practical skills that they might need out on the job. Because the reality is, with an English major, you can and will get a job. And so our focus in this class tends to be heavily on what is professional writing? What do writers do in professional environments? Those sorts of things. So you'll see here that we rely pretty heavily on the rhetorical principles. we're going to return to the basics of rhetoric. All of you should have gotten those basics even in 131. Who knows how long ago that was for you. But we're going to go over them again because they are relevant. And what we're going to try and do is apply those principles to professional work environments and the documentation that you need to do in those environments. We do that because you need to see that you have the ability to learn any kind of new genre that you might need to learn no matter what job you end up in. So even though maybe you are a professional writing minor and you've had other classes, you end up in a work environment that asks for you to know things about search engine optimization and content development, and you just have no idea about any of it. Well, you know rhetoric, so therefore you know how to learn and how to adapt to those things. So here are the key questions that we're going to be looking at. Obviously, what is PW? What makes it different from other genres? Some of you have not taken a technical writing or a business writing course, and so some of this is going to seem really new to you, and that's good. Where does it take place? What sorts of environments? How do we use those rhetorical principles in those environments? And then what do you actually do when you write for a living? There are so many jobs that are available. And so anytime anyone says, what can you do with an English degree? I want you to be able to have answers, and I want you to have goal and vision on how you are going to apply those answers to your own career. So the required materials for class, oops, that scrolled a little more heavily than I meant it to, are all online. They're all free. I decided that I'm going to try and do that more in my classes, and this is one of those ways. You'll notice up here at the top of my my browser window, I've actually earmarked textbooks that I'm using. I think you guys are using this workplace one and then this writing spaces one. I might borrow from this technical writing one, I'm not sure. But you can either bookmark those in your web browser, keep them handy. You can actually download, most of them can be downloaded as PDFs of the entire text. It's just a really great thing using Creative Commons licensing in all three instances, and it's pretty cool. Obviously, we're going to have other PDF readings that aren't available there on our Brightspace page. And the last thing you need to make sure that you have, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that you have to have a means of storing your work. A lot of you, especially if you're working from home, and in fact, most of you who are on campus tend to rely on laptops. Laptops are great, don't get me wrong, but if you save something only to your laptop, and then your laptop gets stolen, or you drop it, or you spill coffee on it, or you find yourself thumping your head on your desk a little too hard because you're really sick of this pandemic, and all of a sudden you, quote, lose everything. Well, that's the thing I'm trying to help you avoid. So you need to be prepared to save things in multiple places. I recommend cloud storage. I use Dropbox.com myself. Some people could use what was it called, like SharePoint or something like that through Outlook. You could email things to yourself. You also could get a simple USB drive or external hard drive. I don't think you're going to need the space that external hard drive would give you, and those cost like $80 or so. So save yourself the cash, and if you need an external thumb drive, like I got one that's plenty big for any kind of documentation I need to do, and it cost me like less than $20. So either find cloud storage or get an external drive of some kind, but prepare for the crash. Just like right now, Zoom has crashed throughout the nation. I think as more schools move online, we're going to need to make sure that we save things and have access to them. The other thing that I was going to point out is that I've noticed with myself, I spend so much time at a computer. I mean, I'm used to doing that. That's part of my job. But I have very little that I have paper-based, whereas in my office, and if I was teaching you guys face-to-face, I would have things that would be paper-based. And so you might want to go ahead and print the syllabus and the calendar, or at least save it outside of Brightspace. I think yesterday Brightspace went down, of course, on the first day of classes, right? And save that so that you have access to it and you know when deadlines are, even if you don't have access to the website at that time. Okay, letter grading. I only do whole letter grades. I don't generally use the plus minus system simply because what's the difference between a B plus and an A minus in terms of the learning and the actual application that a student gets out of a class? It's impossible to tell in a class like ours. Frankly, even in a math class, it's really hard to tell unless someone is really nitpicky about every single thing that they do right or wrong on every exam. That's not how I operate. So I use whole letter grades. The only time I use pluses or minuses if it's to your benefit. So suppose you get like an 88%, but you did really good in the class. I might swing a B plus rather than a B just because you work so hard. Hope that makes sense. So here, projects and grade distribution is obviously you can read. There are 3 big projects that are worth the chunk of your grade, the biggest portion of your grade. But I wanted to point out specifically that including peer reviews and then all of what I call the small stuff, weekly discussion boards, short assignments, quizzes, participation stuff, that's worth 35% of your grade. That's more than a third of your grade. I weighted these things much more heavily in this class than I normally would in a face-to-face class because I want to make sure to engage you as much as possible in the class, to keep you invested in our online environment and keep you invested in the learning. And so that's why the small stuff, the low stakes things that are worth like each thing is worth like 6 points, but it all adds up, and I use percentages anyway. So the point system is just a did you do it correctly kind of system. I weighted it heavily because I wanted to reward your efforts to stay connected to the class, and I wanted to emphasize those things too. So there's that. Obviously, we don't have attendance because the class is online. Oops, I scrolled too much again. But one thing to keep in mind with an online class is that it's a lot harder to stay committed for a lot of students, or systematic, or scheduled. If you are someone who is prone to procrastination, you may or may not like online learning. I would recommend setting up a weekly schedule for yourself, or even a daily one. Set aside a specific time of day that you work on stuff for this class, as if it was a regular class. So I know that we originally were scheduled Tuesday, Thursday from 10:30 to 11:45. You could set aside that time still to work on materials for this class in order to stay systematic and not forget about things. Obviously, there's stuff for asynchronous and synchronous things. Today was, not super exciting for those of you who couldn't make it. I was glad I got to see all your faces, and I think you got to see each other a little bit, so that was good. In our next one, I think is week 3, if I'm remembering correctly. It's actually going to be really fun, and hopefully you enjoy it. So hopefully you can attend that. But most of our time is going to be asynchronous, just where you work on work and you get things done before midnight on the date listed. Okay, so you get to work at your own pace. You can work ahead in the class if you'd like to, but for things that require other participation, like discussion boards or peer reviews, you're going to want to come back and make sure those things are done at the time they're actually required. Okay, so then peer workshops, you've done them before. My class might be a little different. You'll get instructions on those later. Again, here is my contact information. Obviously, Rumsey's at pfw.edu is the best way, but there's the phone line I mentioned, and then I'm going to have open office hours where I just have an open WebEx meeting Wednesdays from 1 to 3. I may decide to change that depending on how the technology works. WebEx is new to me and it's fairly clunky. I would have preferred to use Microsoft Teams, and then they told me I couldn't. And so then I said, okay, well, how about Zoom? And they told me it would cost me money to get a license that's supported by the university. And here we are where Zoom is not working for most of the nation. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm kind of glad that I didn't do that. So for now, it'll be WebEx. I will send around the link for it as soon as I can. All right, so obviously ethics and plagiarism. Don't cheat, don't borrow stuff, don't be a jerk. You know the routine. If you need help with Brightspace, contact ITS. It's worth their time. I can't really help you most of the time. I can help you find things if you can't find them, but if you're having technical trouble, unfortunately, it's not something that I can really help you with. You have to go through them. If you need support services, or if you need disability services, you've got to let me know. We can talk about it. And then obviously here's the calendar. It's pretty basic. All of this stuff then you should see each week in our weekly folder, and I send out weekly emails. So I think that was pretty much it, other than introducing you to one or more of the cats. Here I will show you one. I will show you one right here. This is Gus. He is very fluffy. So have a great afternoon. Hopefully next time I will record the lecture, the synchronous lecture, a little more accurately, and it'll be awesome. Take care, guys. Bye.